Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, December 7th, 7 p.m. Planning Board meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of reflection. Louis, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I'd be honored. Please rise and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
And if you'd please take a moment of reflection. All right, good evening. We'll start this meeting by establishing the voting members. Since one of our regulars is not here, make a motion that Christopher Patrick, an alternate, join to be our seventh vote for the board this evening.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next item is the additions or deletions to the agenda. Please take a moment to review the agenda and let me know if you see any additions or deletions. If not, please provide a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor? Motion passes. Next item is the approval of the minutes from our September 2021 meeting. Please take a moment to review these minutes, and if all looks good or if you have any comments, please make a motion. Do we have a motion?
I wasn't here, I can't make it.
Make a motion, accept the minutes as presented.
All in favor? Thank you. That brings up our first agenda item of the evening. It's item number 21-495, rezoning case CZ 2021-007, Blue Star Solar. Before we get underway, I have a sign-up sheet here of folks wishing to speak for or against this particular project. Is there anyone else that has not been on this list that would like to speak for the Blue Star Solar project?
There are some members of the applicant's team, I think, who did not sign that sheet, but who did sign the sheet when they came in the front door.
Don't worry about applicants. We'll have their chance. Very good. The action requested is to consider recommending approval or denial of the rezoning petition to the Board of County Commissioners. At this time, I ask staff to please come up and present.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Planning Board. I'm here to present the rezoning case CZ-2021-007 Blue Star Solar. This is a request to rezone 4 parcels of land totaling approximately 593 acres found in several parcels. It says the Jackson Township. That is an error. It's actually the Beaufort Township. From RA 40 to RA 200 with conditions, and they have supplied a series of conditions based on buffering and setback from the property line, as well as construction hours and then lighting of the site at night. In terms of the existing conditions, the black outline are the various parcels affected by this. You can see it's a combination of forested land and agricultural land on several roads south of the Parkwood High School cluster at Rocky River and NC 200. In terms of the site plan, you can see it stretches across several parcels with a series of forested lands, some streams, and wetlands that are subject to various buffers that are reflected within the site plan. The gray hatched out areas would be where the solar panel arrays are located. In terms of development status in the area, there are some subdivisions immediately adjacent to the complex, but generally it is undeveloped land surrounding it. In terms of environmental features, again, you have multiple streams and floodplains and wetlands that are located on the parcel. These have been reflected in the site plans that went through the review process in advance of being presented to you. Zoning for the area, there are couple parcels zoned B4 near the Rocky River 200 intersection, but generally it's RA 40 throughout the area. In terms of transportation, there is a funded roundabout at NC 200 and Rocky River and Parkwood School that will occur within the next couple of years. There's no other projects in the immediate vicinity. Counts are fairly low along this section of Rocky River and McManus Roads. And the traffic impact due to this project, once it's actually in operation, will be fairly negligible. In terms of the land use plan for the area, we do not do land use planning to make specific recommendations for solar farms. Solar farms are allowed in the RA 200 zoning district, which is essentially 5-acre lots. That's consistent with a rural residential area. And that is the recommendation for the part of the county where this is located. There is a rural commercial node located at Parkwood School, Rocky River, and NC 200. There are some existing commercial properties already located at that intersection. In terms of public feedback, the applicant held more than the minimum 1 meeting. There were 2 meetings held, 1 virtual, 1 in person in the last month. Approximately 30 people attended the 2 of them. Questions were raised about operating noise of the facility once it's in operation, as well as during construction, the screening that would be implemented to mask it from adjacent property, and no emails or letters were received by the planning department at the time of submittal, which was, or at the time this application was put together to you. But since then, we did receive a letter that was included as a printout in your agenda packets that references berms that were installed on another solar farm nearby, and asked for one to be installed as a part of this to mask the view from their property. In terms of staff recommendation, pluses and minuses associated with it, negatives is that this is a large area that's going to be disturbed in terms of having structures installed on them compared to a overwhelmingly undeveloped area with a lot of agricultural character, and will take some agricultural land out of cultivation. However, the use is consistent with the adopted land use map, particularly the traffic impacts of development. This will not produce noise, light, or traffic impacts on the adjacent properties to any significant degree. It will be developed with buffering above what is required by us, and that there's an appraisal real estate report that's been submitted that states that the development will not substantially injure the values of the adjacent or abutting properties. And so for those reasons, staff recommends approval of this rezoning. And so I'm happy to answer any questions. We have plenty of staff here tonight. Planning director's obviously here. We have stormwater engineer as well in case you have any questions about the streams or buffer impacts. Applicant is also here as well, able to answer questions and explain the proposal.
Thank you, Bjorn. Before we call the applicant up, does anyone on the board have any questions for staff at this time? All right, this time I'd like to call the applicant up. Please state your name and company for the record.
I am Tom Terrell with the law firm Fox Rothschild, here tonight representing Pine Gate Renewables and Renewable Energy Services, who are two of the most respected names and companies who are constructing solar facilities in the state of North Carolina. Both of them are North Carolina companies, and both have earned a wonderful reputation of working with neighbors and working with the communities and the governments when they come in for development. Amy was kind enough to deliver to each of you a notebook that is at your place. I'd like to take just a few seconds to show you what's behind each of these tabs. Mr. Delafield with Renewable Energy is going to follow me with a brief PowerPoint presentation. But if you needed a reference point or a reference guide for any type of question, it's probably in this notebook. At the first tab is an overview that talks about the jobs, economic impact, but the ownership, how much will be developed, things like that. At the second tab is a reference to Pine Gate Renewables and renewable energy that I just mentioned. But it also shows you that Pine Gate Renewables has something called solar culture. I have worked with somewhere between 12 and 15 companies over the last dozen years in the development of these types of projects. Pine Gate is the only company that goes out of its way to construct facilities that do not impact wildlife, that try to work with farmers. They have one of the largest apiaries in the country within a solar facility. That's the type of company that we're dealing with. The next tab actually goes into detail about that. I think you have the site plan. We gave you a site plan in case you're like me and like to have something that is you can look at closely and hold in your hand. But the tab after that is probably the most important tab that we have. At the neighborhood meeting, almost everybody without fail went up to the map to see where they live in relation to it, to ask the question, will I be able to see it? And these diagrams, these renderings illustrate, no, they won't. It won't be immediate. But this is being designed so that if you look at the first page under buffers, That's at 1 year. That's the 1-year planting. These will be tall, where there's no existing vegetation, they will be tall shrubs, lots of evergreens. And the second one, at the second page, shows you what it would be at 5 years. It will be designed so it cannot be seen. We have, following that, there's a tab, frequently asked questions, a Q&A on solar. There's a lot in there. It's written in a very direct, easy way to follow. After that, there's a section on land use compatibility. In a rural area, people are concerned about 3 things. Will it generate traffic? And the answer is no. Will it generate noise? And the answer is no. You cannot be on the outside and hear it. And the third thing is, will it generate light? And no, it is dark at night. So you won't be able to see it, hear it, smell it, and it won't generate traffic. There is a 5-page letter that was sent to neighbors that's at the next tab. This company is one of the most communicative companies you will ever run into when dealing with neighbors. It goes into tremendous detail in a straightforward manner about what solar is. And there was a team of people at the neighborhood meeting to answer those questions. There's a tab on health and safety following that, written by Tommy Cleveland, who pioneered solar at North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center. And after that, we have something on stream protection to make it abundantly clear that when it comes to wetlands and streams, those who develop solar are not exempt from the Clean Water Act. They have to do everything, just like any other company, to protect streams and wetlands. And that the panels essentially are not pervious. It remains a pervious facility. And then after that, we have a 75-page appraisal. Mr. Kirkland is here to present that. We have a maintenance plan, zoning conditions, and the very last tab is a letter to you from 2 of the neighbors who have grown up out there. They are part of the fabric of this community. It actually was in their family before them, but they are asking you to please consider that this would be a very good use of their land as well as the community. I'm glad to answer any questions, but I think it might be more efficient if Mr. Delafield presented a brief PowerPoint as an overview, and then to see if you had questions after that. We do have 3 very brief speakers following him.
Okay, please do so.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Tom Delafield. I'm Director of Project Development for Renewable Energy Services, and I'm here to discuss the Blue Star Solar Project and our application for conditional rezoning. Overview of the project. This was a project that we originated several years ago and that will be owned and operated by Pine Gate Renewables. As Tom mentioned, Pine Gate is a nationally recognized vertically integrated developer located in Asheville. The project itself will be a 31 megawatt project with roughly 300 acres and panels, which is enough to produce approximately enough power for 7,750 homes. We calculate a significant increase to the tax base from these parcels, over a 600% increase over the life of the project, and we've redesigned the site to go above and beyond the county requirements, incorporating large setbacks and visual buffers. I've got a couple slides in here with zoom-in images of the site plan and the visual buffers that are in your binder, but in the interest of time, I'll skip over them. I included them in here. Should you guys have questions, I can always pull them back up on this big screen. Before moving on, I do want to note that the site incorporates 200-foot setbacks and 30-foot vegetative buffers along public roadways and 50-foot vegetative buffers where adjoining residential parcels. Project development. Thus far, we've done a series of thorough electrical engineering screens, ensuring that the project is sized according to the available capacity of the electrical infrastructure in this area. That's a very important condition of approval of solar projects, and we feel that we've got that dialed in. In addition, we've done a series of environmental studies, including a threatened and endangered species screen to ensure there's no vulnerable habitat in any of these parcels, which there is not, and a wetland delineation to confirm the exact boundaries of all the streams and waterways of this project, which are visible on the site plan. In addition, we've gone ahead and got the North Carolina Utilities Commission permit, which is called a CPCN. Happy to talk more about that if you'd like. And looking forward, in the next couple of months, we expect to participate in Duke Energy's competitive procurement process for renewable energy, following which we will do surveys and additional environmental studies before proceeding to building and electrical permits with the county. Community engagement. Throughout the zoning process, we've proactively engaged with the nearby landowners. We mailed over 150 invitations to the 2 public meetings that we held, one of which was held at Bethlehem United Methodist Church, approximately a mile from the site, second of which was held virtually for folks who either weren't comfortable meeting in person or weren't able to make it at the first meeting. Included also in that invitation was a frequently asked questions, which I believe is also in your binder. In total, we had between 20 and 30 attendees, and the most common concerns heard were about the view shed and noise, both of which we feel that we've addressed. On the view shed, we believe the 50-foot of evergreen vegetative buffer should adequately screen the site. And as for noise of the site during operation, we dispatched a Pine Gate technician to a similarly designed site here in North Carolina, and with a decibel reader, and at a distance of 50 feet, the noise from the equipment was imperceptible from the ambient noise of the area. So we feel confident that at a distance of 200 feet plus 50 feet of vegetation, the noise from the site will be completely inaudible. Changes made as a result of the feedback from the community. We increased the vegetative buffer in a couple areas where we inadvertently missed an adjoining residential parcel. We added 4 wildlife corridors throughout the site, which are noted on the site plan as pink lines. They pretty much align with the natural streams and wetlands of the site, as that mirrors how wildlife typically navigates the area. And we swapped out vegetation in the buffer to minimize yard waste for adjoining property owners. We've touched on some of the self-imposed conditions already, and Tom mentioned the daylight construction limitation. That's put in effect so that there's no nighttime construction, which might disrupt surrounding property owners, and there will be no permanent light at the site, so this project will not contribute to light pollution. In addition, we anticipate including pollinator-friendly ground cover, and as noted, there'll be some wildlife corridors. We do calculate a significant benefit to Union County in the tax base, as I touched on at the top, over a 600% increase over the 40-year usable life of this project. Numerically, that comes out to $2 million versus the $280,000 the county would otherwise expect to see from these same parcels. And in year 1, that's $50,000 versus $7,000. In addition, during construction, the county will see significant economic activity during the 9 to 12-month construction period, and we've already reached out to the county's EDC, and we'll continue to work with them to ensure that as much man material as possible is sourced locally. Environmental permitting will be done really at every level with county stormwater, North Carolina DEQ, federal Fish and Wildlife, as well as U.S. Army Corps as needed. The standard for all of these is no adverse impact. As Tom mentioned, we are not exempt from the Clean Water Act, so we will not be negatively impacting any of the waterways on the site or any surrounding area. And the impacts should be very minimal. There will be no modules in floodplains or wetlands, no contamination of any kind, nor emissions, odor, or light. As for traffic, solar farms typically contribute approximately 2.5 vehicle trips per month, whereas the average home contributes 9 vehicle trips per day. So calculating this as opposed to a traditional form of development will, as Bjorn mentioned, have a negligible impact on traffic. Once constructed, Pine Gate Renewables will own and operate this site. They have experience operating solar farms across the U.S. in over 20 states, and that comes with daily remote monitoring, monthly vegetative maintenance, and annual inspections to ensure that equipment and electrical connections are working as they should be. At the end of the facility's usable life, it will be removed with all the equipment coming out both above and below grade, and we will restore the land to a safe and similar condition. In line with that, we will keep a decommissioning plan on file with staff that outlines the methodology for the removal of the equipment as well as a cost estimate to do so, and that cost estimate will be updated every 5 years to account for changes in material pricing, inflation, and so on. In summary, this is a well-sited site, well-concealed, that we believe will bring economic benefit and cleaner air and water to the Union County community, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You're talking about a tremendous amount of power that could do hundreds and hundreds of houses. Do you have battery backups at night when the sun goes down?
No, we do not expect to add batteries to the site.
Then the power goes away at dusk, is that correct?
It simply does not generate electricity at night.
Okay. Now, and so the house that was using all this power, what happens with them at night? They get it from Duke Power, is that correct?
They will get it from Duke Power either way. The electricity that we produce, we sell wholesale to Duke Power, and Duke distributes it as they see fit. So exactly how they push different electrons to every house is Duke's call, and so how they balance the grid as far as generation from solar energy farms versus combined cycle gas plants in Kings Mountain or what have you, that's their decision and out of our purview, unfortunately.
Perhaps you can help me understand this. If I would Duke Power and I could do 10 million megawatts of electricity, it's plenty enough, all by myself.
Yeah.
Why would I buy some from you and then slow down my equipment at night, or in the daytime rather, because I bought some from you already? It does seem kind of silly.
You say that, however, we can produce it cheaper than Duke Power can. So this is a purely free market principle from their point of view, that they lock us into long-term contracts producing energy where they buy energy from us cheaper than their cost of goods sold. So, a stipulation.
Cheaper than their cost of being sold or their cost of production?
To me, I'm sort of using them as one and the same. Their avoided cost is a blended average of their cost of production across all their fuel sources, whether that be hydro, nuclear, coal, gas, et cetera. And a stipulation for even qualifying for a long-term contract with Duke is that we produce energy cheaper than they can. And so we're proud to do that, and that's why they do it.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Chris Sandifer will be our next speaker, followed by Mr. Nick. You'll be up next.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for letting us present tonight. My name is Chris Sandifer. I have offices at 3118 Green Road, Spring Hope, North Carolina. I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of North Carolina and multiple other states. I'm also a licensed contractor in the state of North Carolina with unlimited classification. I would like to say I did work for Duke for 30 years. The last 10 years I worked for Duke was interconnecting distributed generators. I worked on that side of the meter. Now I work on the client side of the meter. I serve on the planning board in Nash County. We have approved 37 utility scale solar farms to date, and we've got another one on the agenda in December. And I also am a farmer and a landowner, and I've got 100 acres that I lease under panels to not this company, but to another company. So I've installed them, I removed them, I've interconnected them. We've got a lot of experience on solar farms and how they work. I have an easy job here tonight. There's no new technology here, because I'm going to talk about health and safety. Just a high view. I'm going to respect your time as best I can, but there's nothing new here. This technology has been around at least 50 years. In the utility scale for over 10, we've gone through tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, hailstones, fires. We've had just about every kind of situation. There's been no impact to the environment due to any of the challenges that have been presented. So I would just like to say there's nothing that can be leached out of the panels. There's no liquids inside. There's no radiation. There's no nuclear devices inside. They're solid state. They're primarily made of the three most common elements found on the earth. That's silicon, aluminum, and oxygen. And that makes over 95% of these panels. They can be recycled. They are being recycled, and but they could be put in a landfill safely. But I don't think anyone would put something this expensive in a landfill, but they could be. These are silicon panels, and they've passed the toxic leach test, and they could be put in a Class 3 landfill. But I'm here to primarily answer any questions you may have about health, safety, and harmony.
Any questions for the speaker?
On these panels, I was looking through this, and they are motorized, which apparently means you put the panel facing directly into the sun.
Yes, sir.
To get the most use out of it. Now, in the motor, and there's concerns about noise. Now, I can't imagine a noisy motor moving a panel 60 degrees in the course of a day, but nonetheless, is that motor set up to run consistently, or does it run periodically, just inches as necessary?
It runs continuously. It's a little DC motor. It's just like that clock right there, but that's an AC motor, and it just tracks the sun. It gets signals from the sun, and that's how it works. And they do whole arrays, a whole string at one time. They follow.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Right.
Where did I can't imagine, unless there's something I just don't know, I can't imagine moving a solar panel 5 degrees is to make enough noise to come make me get out of my bed at night, or at daytime, whatever. What is the noise level? Is there any number of decibels that's coming out of that?
I've never had anyone ask me the question. Typically, I get answers about an inverter, which actually does have a fan that blows on it, it cools it off, and those are in the neighborhood like 65 dB. These motors, I've stood right beside them and I can't hear them. Now, may not have the best hearing in the world, but I can hear you fine. But I cannot hear those things run because they run so slow. They're geared down so much that I can't hear them standing. So if I had to say this, it's well below any kind of background noise and of course they don't run at night at all. So
of course not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at is there any presented number of decibels that would come out of that panel, that group of panels that could disturb the neighborhood?
No, sir.
And if it reached if it reached that level or exceeded the level, the neighborhood would have a legitimate complaint.
Yes, sir. They would.
But there is no such.
There is no noise. The only noise I've ever heard of coming out of, if we had a bad transformer, had some loose lamination, and it made a clacking noise. They swapped the transformer out, and there was no more problems with that.
Thank you, sir.
Any other question? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nick Kirkland with Kirkland Appraisals. My address is 9408 Northfield Court, Raleigh. I'm a certified general appraiser in the state of North Carolina. I've been appraising for 7 years now. At Kirkland Appraisals, we've looked at over 800 solar farms across the country, the vast majority of which have been located in the East Coast and primarily in North Carolina. What we found is solar farms are primarily located in rural areas with mostly agricultural and residential adjoining uses. The proposed site is very similar to this. It's very rural in character with mostly residential and agricultural adjoining uses. Based on this, it's my professional opinion it will be a harmonious use in its location. We also have done what's called a matched pair or a paired sales analysis. This is a methodology supported by the Appraisal Institute, and it's outlined in detail in the Appraisal Institute textbook, Real Estate Damages, which is written by Dr. Randall Bell. In short, we compare a home that sold adjacent to a solar farm with a similar home that sold that was not adjacent to a solar farm in order to measure for any difference. We have significant match pairs within the impact study that you have in the book in front of you that show no impact to the adjoining property values. Furthermore, what we've done is we've looked for match pairs from Union County specific to Monroe Solar Farm, which is a 70 megawatt solar farm that you have here. We found 2 homes that sold prior to the solar farm and then resold after the solar farm and showed typical market appreciation, which is a significant indicator of no impact to the adjoining property values. Furthermore, there were 2 6.5 acre lots that also adjoin that solar farm that sold for a similar price and a similar marketing period as other nearby similar sized lots. Based on this, I consider this to be my professional opinion that this will not impact the adjoining property value. Furthermore, we've also reviewed 2 university studies, one out of the University of Texas at Austin, which looked at asking appraisers and assessors via survey, have they ever appraised something adjacent to a solar farm? And furthermore, what impact they think a solar farm would have on an adjoining property value. This was based on being 100 feet away from the solar farm, directly from the panels to the house, with no vegetative screening whatsoever. Those appraisers and assessors who had experience appraising properties next to solar farms indicated at most a -5% to a 0% impact, being 100 feet away. For the proposed project, as you heard, it's a 200-foot setback minimum, and there will be a vegetative screen. And based on this, I consider this support for no impact to those properties that adjoin the subject property. We also looked at the University of Rhode Island study. This study was done to figure out, do solar farms impact adjoining property values, and if so, at what density? While they found that in urban areas, such as New Jersey and Maryland, solar farms do have a minor impact on property values, anything rural or less in nature, they found it does not impact adjoining property values. What they define as rural is a population density of 850 people per square mile. For the Beaufort Township, where this is proposed to be located, the population density is about 103 people per square mile, significantly lower than what they found as no impact. I consider this further support for no impact to the adjoining property values. Happy to go into more detail or answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Nick. Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, recommendation to you, sir. If you're going to speak before the Board of Commissioners, you need to have that in PowerPoint where you say this and say this and say this, but it's not substantiated.
Okay?
Just a recommendation that you do that. If you state something is factual, then how is it factual? Does that make sense?
So you would like to see this like you have in...
Documentation. If you say something, well, it's like when the gentleman opened, we're very reputable, but yet we didn't have any paperwork saying that this town or this planning board or that or whatever the case may be wrote a letter to the company saying we really like working with these people, their reputation is spectacular, et cetera, so forth and so on. Does that make sense? I take it from a business standpoint, you're giving me your opinions and not supporting it by facts.
The 75-page impact study in that notebook is what I based those opinions on, sir.
We just got this book,
Okay.
okay? And we've had the stuff from the staff over about 2 weeks. If we'd had this book back then to go through it, we were handed this about 10 minutes before, 15 minutes before the meeting started. And when we make a vote tonight, it'll be made, but we may not be as informed as we need to be. And that's the way I feel about it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice
Patrick, do you
Chair.
agree?
And John, may I?
Yes, sir.
Also, this thing about the PowerPoint, I agree with you 100%. You know, we've had people come up here, and I'm not, don't take this personally. We've had people come stand up here and say all kinds of crazy things. But when you get a PowerPoint, and it's got your name on it, little sucker, and we got a copy of it, and you leave here and say bye-bye, that guy's out of his mind. That thing liable to come back and haunt you. And I mean, you being the speaker, any speaker, and that would tend to give a speaker a lot more imperative idea on telling the truth or making it accurate, because he's getting beat up if he doesn't. And that's probably part of the thinking here as well. And that's just so you know, okay?
Thank you for your opinion.
And we were given to make one clarification, I did tell Mr. Jensen tonight that I felt that the staff did an outstanding job in preparing us to come to this meeting with what they had. And also, I just think it could be better informed, because whatever the recommendation we make to the commissioners, our reputation as board members is on the line. Did they pick the best people to give them the information besides the staff to represent the citizens of Union County? And I'm not nitpicking. Do not, because Lord, I've been in your place before, had some of the same things said to me, and it's just something to look forward to as you go forward. And also, I appreciate everything you've said to us tonight. Thank you very much.
I think it would be helpful if you get this to the commissioners, regardless of what our vote is this evening, just well ahead of time so they have plenty of time to review that. And that's not directed at you, that's directed at the applicant in general. Any other comments from the board?
I happen to agree with you. In fact, they can have my copy instead of having to recopy all of it to give to the commissioners.
That concludes our presentation. We thank you for your patience. Just to correct the record, though, I believe that market impact study was submitted to staff a few months ago, and although it was buried possibly in a lot of documents, it should have been available for your review. But that's excellent advice. We'll make sure that the commissioners get the full notebook before then. If you have questions, we're glad to answer them now. We will be here for the entire hearing. If neighbors have questions or are curious, we would be glad to come back at any point to answer those questions if you think that would be necessary or helpful.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we very well may, there may be some comments made by the public that could bring up some questions. I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we're going to open it up to public comments, and we'll go by the list provided to me. I will apologize in advance if I mispronounce your name. I'm not good at that kind of thing, and I think that's one thing that Vice Chair Fisher is glad he doesn't have to do anymore. But to that end, I know that these can be contentious sometimes, and there could be some emotion involved. We ask that you keep everything professional and respectful, and the one person that should be speaking at any time would be the one at the podium. Whether you agree with them or disagree with them, please respect them enough to stay silent and wait your turn to speak. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. They cannot share their time. At the end of 3 minutes, their time will be up. Louis, could you please keep track of that for me? And Louis will outline his protocol. He'll give you some hand gestures as far as when you have 30 seconds or 10 seconds remaining. You may not share your time. One person, 3 minutes or less. And at the time you step up to the podium, please state your name, address, and whether you are for or against the proposed rezoning. This time I'd like to call up Mr. Michael Mayer. Louis, if you'd like to explain your hand signals.
Yes. I'll do it real quick.
Yes, I know all the jokes about Mayor, so we can hold off on that one.
I will give you a hands up when you have 30 seconds, 2 hands up in 15 seconds, and I'll tell you you're done when you're done. That's fair enough?
Michael Mayer, 2511 Terra Drive. I'm basically against the solar panel. Property that I live on directly borders the 48 acres, and the lay of the land, if they just put a 50-foot buffer on, is not going to hide the solar panels. And my suggestion is that we do a berm. The noise factor, I have difference with that. And the only thing I can relate it to is if you've got one bee, it doesn't make much noise, but if you've got a hive, it makes a lot of noise. And when you've got hundreds of solar panels moving during the course of the day, not counting expansion, contraction, the dissimilar materials, this is all going to be heard. And if you want to know any expertise as far as what I'm saying is concerned, I was a crew chief on a B-52, so I know a lot about expansion, contraction, and metals. So my suggestion is a berm. If this has to go through, that would be the best solution for us as far as view and for noise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your service. Next up, Lorraine Mayer.
She's with me, thank you.
You know, I wouldn't be able to do 3 minutes, believe me. I would definitely be going over, but that's okay. He said what we needed to say.
Thank you.
We do need a berm, there's no question about it.
Next up, Nick Kirkland.
You already heard from me?
Already got you there already. Number 4 is Tom, and I cannot even read that last name. I apologize.
Probably Delafield, that would be,
Is that it? Okay. All right. Next is going to be Chris Saul Pipe. Wow, you guys all signed up for public comment. Are you speaking against? All right, this one I know I'm going to botch. VJ Yabasham.
First name is Vijayabhasham. Are you here tonight?
Sir? Oh, we do, but
The next one. He may have signed the
Amy,
wrong sheet.
could you please check to see if that individual is present?
What street do they live
Rocky Hollow.
Rocky Hollow is the tower.
Okay.
He'll come back.
Well. And the last one is Jeff Purser.
Yes.
My name's Jeff Purser. I live at 21012 Decorah Drive. That's in Cornelius. I'm here in the capacity of I'm a manager and one of the owners of Purser Brothers Holdings 1 LLC. We own the piece of property at 4120 McManus Road, which is tax parcel ID 04255-004. We are speaking for the solar farm. I'd like to give you just a brief history of why we have the property. My father, who was H.D. Purser, Devon Purser, son of a Henry Purser from New Salem, Union County, which consequently went off, lived in Mecklenburg County and Charlotte, and lived in Mecklenburg County, bought this property. My father is deceased now. He was deceased in 2000, and he became deceased in 2019, but prior to his death, we had entered into an agreement with the solar farm. And we were very impressed with the solar farm people. My father was 100% for it. On my father's passing, he had 4 sons. I'm one of the 4. We inherited the property immediately on his death per North Carolina law. We in turn put it into an LLC. So that's why we have the property. As LLC, our goal is to sell all the properties we inherited from our father or develop them one, mostly sell them. Since this property is under contract with the solar farm, we like that concept. We like the solar farm concept anyway. We think it's good business for the community, for the nation. I don't see anything wrong with it. We studied it greatly, and they won't use all of our property. We have 208 point fractional acres. Some of it they won't be able to use, so we'll retain, but we're okay having it beside there, okay? I don't believe it will make any noise. I don't believe a bit, but let me tell you what we're doing right now. We barely get enough rent to cover the taxes for the county. We do have a farmer on there who farms it. We also have people who hunt on it. The property has been logged before and it's grown back up. We're considering, can I have more time than that?
30 seconds.
Okay, because I'm kind of with the group. Nevertheless, if we are not successful in this, our goal is to either sell it or do something with it. It's not going to be pristine and sit there with beautiful sights and no sound. That's just the bottom line. If it's a housing development, you're going to have more traffic. I like the concept of being able to sit out here and go outside at night and see stars. I can't do that at my house where I live. I'm in an urban area. We have hunters there. We have farmers there. There's got to be more sound from them than from
Thank you,
solar
Mr.
farm.
Purser.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And that concludes our public comment section. At this time, I would close the floor for public comment. I'd like to ask the board members for any discussion.
Well, I'm surprised that all the people here are for something else. We only had one person had an objection to this deal.
Technically, two.
I'm not happy about receiving this book this late and having this much information away from us, but I really can't find a heck of a lot wrong with this. The only place I'd consider would be to raise that berm up a bit and make sure it's completely away, because the places where they are not developed now, in 10 years they'll be developed, because this is a growing area. And if people live in their houses near a solar farm, I'd rather them not have to look at the solar panels. I personally don't feel like there's be enough noise coming out of the movement of the solar panels to make any disturbance to anybody. And if you just keep it away from people's view, it would affect their property values and would affect their lifestyle, I think we could pass it then. But I would want to really be reassured that the civilians who have their homes there, the ones who will be building there in the foreseeable future, will have themselves isolated from this operation. That's my thoughts.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir.
I just want to say that I'm all for solar, renewable energy, and at first, I have to be honest, I was thinking to myself, why are we taking farmland and putting solar panels on it when we could put them on top of buildings and all that sort of thing? But then I thought about it further. You know, it's not going to change the land. It's also can be removed. You know, when the lease is up, it can be removed and the land stays the same. And the fact that it has wildlife corridors and can be someplace for wildlife, I support all those things. The other thing I want to say is that, you know, with this acreage and with as much development is going on with that part of the county, and with the berm that they're going to, well, not the berm, but the trees and the shrubbery that they're going to have around it, to block it from view, it's going to not have a very little impact on the environment itself. And it's going to be it's like living next to, it's going to be very quiet as far as neighbor and noise goes. So being that it's quiet and it's going to be out of view, I don't see it's going to have an impact on real estate either. So for that, I don't really have much of a problem with this project.
Any additional comments? Absolutely. First guy is the public speaker.
No,
The applicant? The applicant?
yes.
Yes, sir.
You're saying about buffering, everybody's talking about berms, are you going to use a berm or not?
We do not plan to at this time. I assume that people are thinking of the berm because they see one beside the Duke Energy solar facility a few miles north of there on South Rocky River. And if you've driven past that facility, you know that they didn't hardly try to plant any vegetation to screen that from view. So, you know, they, I think, planted like one 5-foot tree, and we're talking about planting 50 feet deep, several rows of vegetation that is a minimum of 6 to 8 feet at the time of planting. So over time, obviously, as that vegetation matures, we think it'll grow far in excess of.
What do you think that timeframe is? I mean, people are going to have to look at these panels for 5-10 years?
I don't think so. I would refer you to those landscape renderings that are in the binder. So in year one, you can see just a touch of the vegetation of the.
Now, I'm looking at, it's an existing field.
Mm-hmm.
You have a 30-foot buffer, but you can't see anything behind it yet. And how long does it take that 30-foot buffer to grow?
Well, there's another one in there that's a 5-year rendering or 5-year growth, a rendering of 5-year growth. And, under that, it is completely, I guess, impossible to see through. So I would say no more than 5 years. I would imagine less, excuse me, sorry.
And if I could also just add, the justification for the request was a noise one. That's why he was asking for a berm. It's one thing to proclaim that a tracker makes noise. I have been in these facilities. The other members of this team have been in these facilities. We can tell you, and we would very respectfully invite Mr. Mayor to visit one. You cannot hear a tracker. You can say you can, but you stand right beside it. You can't see it move. It's like a sunflower that follows the sun as it goes through the day. You can stand there for 30 minutes and you can't see the motion. It's that imperceptible. You just can't hear a solar farm from the outside.
As noted from Mr. Sandifer, the electrical engineer, he believes them to be inaudible. As I discussed in my PowerPoint, we dispatched a Pine Gate technician to a solar farm where this tracking technology is utilized with a sound reader, and at a distance of 50 feet, it was imperceptible beyond ambient noise. So again, 200 feet plus the 50-foot of vegetative buffer, we believe even if the neighbors were standing on their property line, there would be no way to hear the facility.
Yeah, I was just concerned about the view of it. Putting the plants on the berm, instant gratification of good soccer. You can see it right away. You said something about decommissioning these after so many years. Do these wear out after a certain time and they have to be replaced, or?
Not typically. The panels usually come with 20-year warranties. And so, if you've used, your refrigerator comes with a warranty and is obviously usable far longer than that. So the expectation is that the production of those panels from year one lasts until the end of the facility's usable life. So when we project out these facilities, we do not anticipate retrofitting them with panels except if they're damaged or malfunction or something to that effect. But in general, at the outset, we don't expect to retrofit the entire farm.
Why do you, after so many years, just pull everything out and you go someplace else? Why don't you just stay there and continue to use it and sell the electricity to?
Well, yeah, that's a possibility. Frankly, 40 years is a very long time, and asking landowners to sign their land up for longer than that becomes quite a challenge. And so, that's, to us, kind of the right amount of maximization of the investment versus, respect for what the future may bring, given, how much time has changed in the last 40 years, what's 40 years from now going to be like.
So you're just leasing the land, you're not buying it?
Correct.
And my understanding of solar panels, and correct me if I'm incorrect, but they lose efficiency over time.
They do, typically about 1% a year starting in year 20.
So typically the lifespan is determined by reaching a certain efficiency level drop,
Yes.
more or less. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
Well, one more point I'd like to make. We have some concern from a living wall, obstructive wall to a berm, which is obstructive also. What I would say to you is that there's going to be more people living there within the next 20 years, that's for sure. And another thing about living walls is living walls die and you get holes, but a berm of mud stacked up so many feet, it ain't going nowhere. I would just think that a berm would be more efficient and more secure for the people who live there, more secure for their property values, although I'm well aware of the fact it would cost more, and I can understand why you don't want to pay it. But it's a better way of obscuring that big solar farm by using a berm. It's more efficient and it's longer lasting. And the board can think about that.
Vice Chair Fisher?
First of all, I want to commend Mr. Mayor for being here tonight, talking about berms, and I really appreciate Mr. Purser being here tonight so we could hear firsthand a person that's been there, invested a lot in Union County with his family, and has seen what a solar farm can do if it's done right. And I believe he was talking about berms and making them more efficient and bigger, et cetera. And I'm glad you asked that question, Louis. And I think if we can, when it comes time to voting, if we can think about this berm issue and make a stipulation like we always do when we vote, for the board to make sure, the staff makes sure that when it goes to the Board of Commissioners, it's got a berm increase of some kind, because like you say, it's not going anywhere. And the vegetation, instead of making it for the, what I call first year vegetation, we ought to plant it to where, like I know municipality, the smallest plant you can plant is 18 inches above the ground. Well, I don't say you can't go another 6, 8, or 10 inches, but I think we need to reinvest the thinking and design to fix the berms, to help the citizens, and then to follow Mr. Purser and what he's noticed with what he is used to working with. And I thank you two gentlemen very, very, very much for your comments.
Thank you. Further discussion? Another question for the applicant, please.
After this is all said and done, 40 years, say it's all done, you're going to put the land back the way it was, so you can take all the vegetation back out that you put in?
That is at the discretion of the landowners, whether they would want that removed or not.
Thank you. My personal experience at my house, I've got high-tension power lines in a field behind the property. So there's a large right-of-way back there that I can't touch. And it doesn't look good, but I knew that when I bought it. And I've got trees there, doesn't really bother me. I know solar panels, in my opinion, don't look that great, but neither do rooftops. And I feel that rooftops would also generate more noise with vehicles. And looking at the situation with the county and just the revenues, I do think that this is a tax winner for the county. We're not having to put kids in schools. We're not adding to the roads. And as much as I'd love to see it remain farmland, I do feel as though this is a good use for the property. But I'd like to echo the Vice Chair's sentiments that we should consider some sort of a conditional berm at the perimeter.
I can go for that.
I'd go for it too.
So that being said, do we have a motion?
What about Christopher? What do you think? Okay.
Well, since I'll make the motion that we specify a berm as opposed to vegetation as outside wall.
I'd like to second that motion, noticing the staff comments and recommendations that this particular request is consistent with preserving the rural character. A solar farm is not a permanent change to the land that's been brought out. It does not involve new homes, commercial, or industrial activities generating traffic, light, or noise. And because of these characteristics, I believe this board should approve this rezoning application as a second.
Do we have a stipulation for the berm?
Berm has to be in that.
Should we present?
Specificity to this berm?
That's exactly where I was going with that. Is there anything you'd like to add on to the motion as far as berm specificity?
I just think we find an agreeable or amicable height along with any sort of growth or vegetation that is specific minimum that we can include in there.
It's got to have vegetation on the berm, you can't just have a berm by itself.
Can we back up for a second? Let's find a height of the solar panel that is height, that backs in height. That'll give you an idea what you do for a berm, and there's gonna be something growing on top of it.
The other question is, should the berm go all the way around the property, or should the berm just be where there's existing development adjoining the property, and the rest can be the wooded buffer.
Mr. Jensen,
I'm actually not.
you look like you had something to say.
I do, but it's not about the berm. Just in general, typically on conditional rezonings, and of course, you're making a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, just some food for thought. Typically, or actually not typically, always in conditional rezoning, conditions have to be agreed to by the Board of Commissioners and the applicant. If it's approved, of course, the board could turn it down if they don't agree to conditions. So if you want to add conditions, I would make the suggestion that maybe you structure it to approve it. You would make a recommendation to approve if this condition was added and then agreed to by the applicant. I just wanted to clarify that may be how you want to structure that statement. That's all.
Thank you, Mr.
You're
Jensen.
welcome.
Keeping us out of trouble.
I'm good with that. Knowledge to specify exactly.
All right, do we have an amended motion we'd like to present?
Sir,
I'd like to.
Say again?
could I have a word?
He's chairman. I just wanted.
Sure. Come on up.
Thank you. I heard your questioning about where the berm should be. The only thing I'm considering is that if you look on your map, the orange areas have absolutely no buffer at this point. The green areas, the dotted, the line on there, is where there's existing trees. So it's not a matter of putting a berm where the existing trees are, it's where there's nothing right at this point. And that's what I'm concerned about, because there's nothing there. I don't know if Bjorn shared my email and the picture of what it looks like back there. And my other question in the email was, does anybody come out and take a good look at what's going on, or do you just do this on paper? Do you look to see what it's going to affect, who it's going to affect? And that's, I guess, kind of a concern with me, because I figure you guys are here to kind of protect me. And that's why I am here. I'm looking for some protection. I'm looking for some help. This is something that is near and dear to me. This is my last house. I'm 76. By the time those trees grow up, I'll probably be dead. And then the value of the property, I still question that, because I have not seen a real estate ad touting the effects of having a solar farm behind you. Guys, do what you have to do. Thank you very much.
Thank
Can I
you.
have a word for a second?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Yes.
may I mention to you, I think I can speak for the rest of the board as well, but I go out, we get these things come in, and I go out and look at the property, and I go out and then look around, see what would happen, and see what I can pick up. But do bear in mind, I'm not an engineer, I don't build houses, I don't build factories, and I go out and get as much knowledge as I possibly can, so when I come here, at least I've been on site, and I'm a little smarter than I was before I went out there. But we can't go out and do research and get the kind of information we can get from professionals out here. So when we come to this board, we might be a little smarter than the average guy, because at least we looked at it. But we're not gonna have the background of information that would take to make these decisions until professional people get up and speak.
Okay.
We do the best we can.
Agreed, okay. But I obviously don't have the resources that they have. I mean, how many people have come up with fancy presentations and everything else? I'm just an old guy, and this is where I live. When they leave here, they're collecting the money, and I'm stuck with looking at panels, okay? And if you can just get a berm up and be done with it, and then everybody might be happy. That's my only thing. I just want to be protected. I don't know what more to say.
Well, can you not see that we are trying to protect the citizens of Union County?
I'm sorry?
This is what can you not see that we are trying to do what's best
I'm
for the
trying, but
people
I
of
guess I'm
Union
just
County?
trying to plead my case here, because I had heard, unless I heard it wrong, was that you were worried about the berm being everywhere. Now, I understand that's going to put an undue burden on them to build a berm everywhere, all right? And if you've already got a bank of trees there, if I had a bank of trees in here, I probably wouldn't complain, but I don't. I'm wide open. And, If the trees were existing, then fine. Obviously, I'm repeating myself. But where there is nothing, I think the berm is necessary. And I just wanted to clarify that for your information, as far as worrying about whether the berm had to be placed everywhere. And I just don't think so. I just think you have to
Mayor.
worry about the people where it's wide open.
I have just one question for you.
Sure.
In your opinion, because you've got a direct view of this, you probably know that land better than any of us, what height berm would you feel would address your concerns?
All right. In my situation, the lay of the land is important, because if I have a 10-foot tree in front of me, all right, the lay of the land is such that as you go out, it gets higher. Okay? Now I've got panels on top of that, which are very, very visible. That's why I had asked whether or not anybody comes down to take a look. The property is high at the top, comes down, and you could see all the way across the field. So I'm never going to be out of a view of a solar panel, and I'm also, again, worried about the noise, and that's, I guess, open for discussion. But yeah, if you had a berm, I'd say 6, 7 feet high, then planting a tree on top of it, that would probably suffice. What we have over there by Stonebridge, okay, that might be a little too excessive for where we are, because the way their houses are situated, they're already up on top of a berm. And they've got a berm in behind their houses, and then the berm across the street. I'm not asking for a tremendous amount of thing. Just a berm to hide the view and make sure that there's no noise penetrating.
So basically, you're at the bottom of the hill.
I'm sorry, sir?
You're at the bottom of the hill, that's what you're saying?
Yeah, the property is high at the street, and then it goes down. So when you're at the front of my property, you look down over the pasture land behind us. And it's rolling. So that means I have to assume they're not going to be cutting the land down and leveling it out. And like at the Duke Power facility, the panels are set on the rolling terrain. I'm concerned about my property values. If I had to sell this house right now with the panels there, I just don't think it's going to work.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I point out
Thank you.
something on the site plan? We were talking about, the suggestion was putting a berm where there are no trees. But if you look at the site plan, the orange represents the area where there are no existing trees. In most of those places, it is against woods or it's against fields. There is no one there who would be looking in. So a blanket request for a berm where there are no trees is a massive and very expensive solution where there is no problem. So I want you to be aware of that. Now, if Mr. Mayor would like something higher than 6 feet adjacent to his home, we would be glad to do that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, as far as, you don't have to have the berm around the whole perimeter, and of course, if you have vegetation, it's not necessary, but, really just something where there's a development, and if you look at the map, there's a few developments and properties that are right next to it. So you wouldn't have to do that much berm construction.
5 properties. 5 properties, that line we're talking about.
5 properties.
5 properties, that's all we're asking for.
That's,
We would offer to do the 5 properties.
all right.
That would not be an issue.
That's enough comment for now. Thank you. I think we're looking towards some sort of a motion, maybe where there'd be a berm requirement where it borders current houses within perhaps a certain amount of feet.
If this was a berm, and they took that, put it on top of the berm, you'd never see any of this. It would be halfway. So if you took the berm half the size of a panel,
Because you have just 2 panels. So
Gentlemen, I'm thinking perhaps,
Chairman, I have to retract that offer. The company, it gets into engineering that has not been done yet, so it may not be possible in those locations, so I apologize that I spoke too soon.
thank you.
Oh, Jonathan, one more thing we thought about with the berm, there's a lot of periphery area around that proposed site that is not occupied at the moment. But remember, we are a growing community, and it's gonna be there, and then those other things, that's probably not gonna be growing cotton, they'll probably be growing houses somewhere down the road. And perhaps if the landlord didn't get out here and wanna get into the battle like everybody else here does, they should take the beating for it. But that was a lot of my logic there, was that stuff is one day going to be residential.
Sure.
And it's gonna be a hard time with the solar farm right next door.
And to that end, no, sir, public comment is over at this time.
Well,
So,
this gentleman is making comments that affects
sir,
our
public comment is over at this time, sir.
You allow this gentleman to talk again.
You had your time. He had his time. We allowed him to come back up. Public comment is over at this time, sir. At this time, we have the current conditions. And if someone moves there when there's already a solar farm, that's on them. They move in knowing. That's like moving beside an airport and complaining about the noise. We know it's there. It's material fact, and it's very easy to disclose.
And a developer who comes in after the fact will probably, at their discretion, maybe make a berm themselves for their, if they felt that was necessary to sell their houses.
I'm looking at this map, and I'm seeing maybe 10 to 15 properties where there'd be a residence within, say, 200 feet of this buffer. Now, to me, proposing that there be a 6 to 7 foot berm in those areas where we're joining it doesn't seem unreasonable. The remainder of it, you either have vegetation or it's undeveloped, and that's something for the future developer to consider. Just my 2 cents.
I can go for that.
Do we have a motion?
The engineering is not done. You might not be able to do it. Or you might. We don't know. I think it'd be better just to let them have a little bit of time to work this out with those people. We don't have to vote on this tonight, we can take a look.
I agree with Charlie.
Give them time to work this out with these few landowners. It's a big company, they ought to be able to figure that out. If they're that nice and that good.
Bring it back to
They
us.
can get that straightened out by next month.
Do we have a motion to table?
I do.
Second it.
All in favor? All opposed? Thank you. At this time, before we get into the next item, I'd like to call a 5-minute recess. It's currently 8:18. I'd like to reconvene at 8:23. Oh, sorry, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right.
Can you bring it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, and then to move it from slide to slide, just like
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
Okay.
And then if you, to make it full, you just hit that one, the slideshow, and it'll make it the full.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure I knew how to do it before we got started.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, and I'm going to be relatively brief today. I'm going to put on our witnesses' events before the board commissioners. So I'm just going to give my presentation. And did they have a copy of the property report? Because it's uploaded on the site.
Yeah.
So what was the difference with this one?
Nothing.
Did they have the copy?
They had it as well. They had a 700-page report, and I think or a 700-page agenda packet. I think they just got overwhelmed. I don't think they recognized what they actually had, because we went and pulled it up. We're like, wait, it's in there.
Okay. I just want to make sure that they had it, just in case.
They had. I think they were confused by getting it again and potentially thinking, was this new information?
Yeah, and they got the updated.
And that's why when I said, should I do books or just a slideshow? I was like, don't do the books, because they feel like they feel like they're getting jammed.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Okay, thank you. Thanks for all your work on this. This is not going to be easy.
Yeah, it certainly has. It's been pretty complicated. How's it going over there?
It's all right. Just trying to stand and walk for a bit.
Not back there, or are they just...
Yeah, they're all talking amongst themselves.
Yeah, that's fine.
Plot.
Yeah.
I'm Jim Hansen.
Hey, Jim. Good to see you.
Hansen.
Yep, me
I'm
too.
half Danish.
Yeah.
I just have to ask you, how much Danish are you?
I'm actually more. I did the DNA test about a year ago. I'm actually more Swedish than Danish. But my parents, I got the name. I got the name from the name from my grandpa. Who came
If everybody could please take a seat, I need to make sure that my first 18 people have seats. Yeah, I need to make sure, so I don't know who all's in here and who has a seat and who does not. Is it maybe? So I'm so sorry. So you already have a seat. Is the next one Bill? Jill. Maybe I should get her. So she has a seat. She's in the room and has a seat. Karen's in here with the seat.
I put my name on the list.
Well, if they find me, I do have some people in here.
Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. Is it out there back there?
Like to reconvene? Please take a seat. Can you please close the door back there? Someone, please. Thank you. Before we pick up the next case, there was something that was brought to my attention that I'd like to address. We've got a new system that we're doing the agendas with. So, out of respect for the applicant on the previous case, I would like to acknowledge that some of the studies that did not appear to be there were in fact there. We're just getting used to the new system as a board, and we simply missed that, so I owe that to the applicant. Moving forward, as you could see from the previous case, these things can get emotional, and rightfully so. We ask that everyone keep it respectful. On this next one moving forward, since we do have quite a few speakers, we're going to be extremely strict about the 3-minute rule. Each person will only have one chance to speak unless a board member specifically requests that they come back. Hopefully we don't have any issues. Please be respectful. Stay silent unless it's your turn to speak, whether you agree or disagree, and we'll get through all this. That being said, our next case is 21-491, rezoning case CZ 2021-006, City Switch, where they are recommending approval or denial to the Board of Commissioners for this case. Bjorn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board. That's Blue Star Solar. This case, as you mentioned before, City Switch rezoning is to rezone a 4.78 acre parcel in the Sandy Ridge Township that's already been rezoned to B2 with conditions to B2 with modified conditions. That's why it's going to you and not to the Board of Adjustment as a special use permit. And the requested condition is to build a 160-foot monopole telecommunications tower with a 10-foot lightning rod on top on a fraction of that overall parcel. Applicant has committed to a series of conditions regarding this tower, regarding the height, lighting, an opportunity for an easement to the adjacent neighborhood immediately to the west where a trail system has been connected or been built, that a connection could be made to this commercial area to allow people to go back and forth between the two, and there would be a screening around the fenced-in area. In terms of the existing conditions, it's behind the Andes Custard and Lighthouse Child Care Facility along Ray Road. This parcel is actually probably best reflected by what's on the looking to the west. It's a rectangular piece of land with a lot of stormwater detention facility on it. To the left, which is the northwest, would be floodplain, and the site itself is a portion behind where the driveway is off of Ray Road. This is a better shot showing it from an aerial that was taken within the last couple of years. It would be this portion right here behind the child care facility and the Andes Custard. In terms of adjacent municipalities, it is immediately adjacent to Marvin. Marvin was consulted as a part of this process. They have provided a resolution against this application. In terms of development status, there's quite a bit of development that has occurred in the area. You have single family, some townhomes, commercial, retail further down towards the Kohl's Shopping Center, and then to the north is the Mecklenburg County line. In terms of environmental features, there's a significant amount of floodplain and wetlands and stream along the site. This portion of the property is essentially what's left that would be developable for this proposed use. In terms of zoning, it is complicated. There is quite a bit of conditional zoning that has occurred in the area, so that's why you see a lot of letters and numbers and hashes throughout all these parcels, because they were part of conditional zonings that have been done previously. So this area is the CZ that I referred to earlier, and it was actually rezoned just a few years ago. In terms of transportation, Ray Road, high-volume corridor, multi-lane sidewalks, no funded improvements. It's already been built. This project would have negligible traffic impacts on the area, so not really relevant for this issue. In terms of the land use plan, there's a commercial node that's identified for Ray and Tom Short, and the remainder single-family residential. This is encompassed within the commercial node. In terms of public feedback, over 20 letters and emails received at this point, with the majority opposing the rezoning. There have been a few residents who have written saying, yes, cell phone coverage is not great, so having an additional tower would be an improvement, as well as from some telecommunications companies that would co-locate facilities on this tower in order to improve their own network. But the majority have been against this due to a variety of concerns that you will hear later. Again, there's the resolution submitted by Marvin. 2 petitions signed by over 400 people. I will note that they're not all Union County residents or immediately adjacent to the parcel, but there's still many people who have signed 1 or more petitions. A joint opposition and documentation that's in your agenda packet submitted by 3 nearby homeowner associations working together on this issue, and significant opposition was expressed at the community meeting. In terms of the staff report and recommendation, looking at the positives and negatives of this, negatives are that the appearance of the tower and fencing is out of character for the immediately adjacent properties, and the location of the tower is uniquely located to harm adjacent properties due to possible falling debris. That's not necessarily to say that the tower will be poorly maintained, but things can happen on towers, and either natural or otherwise, and where the debris would fall is a very little margin for error. In terms of the positives of the proposal, it'll increase telecommunications coverage for the area, and it will provide the opportunity for a future trail connection. Overall, the staff recommendation is to deny the request. The applicant is here and is able to present additional information on behalf of this proposal, and there are numerous residents signed up to speak on this application. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Otherwise, I would ask the applicant to speak.
Any questions for Bjorn at this time?
I have a question, but you may not be the person to answer it. Is, with a tower, it said that there's no lighting, but don't these towers have to have lights on top for aircraft?
Not at this height.
Bjorn. 30 foot is not high enough to require tower light?
Apparently not.
You received you received an email saying that it's 170 feet now instead of
Well,
100?
it's always been 170. It just was not really clear to say that it's 170 when you include the lightning rod. First, the initial description was 160 feet as the telecommunications tower, plus a lightning rod. We said, well, I think a reasonable person would look and say it's a 170-foot structure. It'd be better to redefine it as that, and it has subsequently been redefined as that, but it doesn't change what the building or what the structure will actually be.
Do you know the height for a light for aviation?
200 feet.
200?
Any other questions for Bjorn at this time? Thank you.
Thank you.
This time, we'd like to call the applicant forward to present. Please state your name and company that you're with for the record, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Board. My name is Karen Kimmerite, and I'm an attorney with Fox Rothschild in Raleigh. My business address is 434 Fayetteville Street, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27604. And I'm here on behalf of the applicants, and the applicants are City Switch and AT&T Mobility. And I have a presentation that I'll be providing. I have a number of representatives in support of the application, but In the interest of time, I'm going to provide the presentation, and they are available to answer any questions. But I thought it would be more efficient time-wise for me to walk you through the application and explain why we think the application should be approved. And to answer the first question, cell towers, if they are, as Bjorn mentioned, if they are 200 feet or taller, then they are required by the FAA to be lit. And this tower is 160 feet with a 10-foot lightning rod for a total of 170 feet. And so it is not required by the FAA to be lit. And we have an FAA report confirming that no lighting is required for the tower. And so this is obviously our application for a conditional rezoning so that City Switch can construct the 160-foot monopole with a 10-foot lightning rod so that AT&T and other carriers can improve coverage in the area. The tower is also a tower that is going to be utilized for the First Responder Network Authority, which I'll refer to going forward as FirstNet, which will provide wireless broadband coverage to first responders in the area. And by first responders, I mean the police, policemen, the firemen, and EMS personnel. The tower will also be utilized by all, in addition to AT&T, by all of the main wireless carriers, including Verizon, T-Mobile, and Dish Network, because all of the main carriers have insufficient coverage in the area, and they are looking to improve their coverage and capacity problems in that area of the county. I mentioned that this is a tower that's going to be a monopole, but we have provided conditions to our rezoning application. And during the community meeting, there was a suggestion from one of the attendees at the meeting that they would prefer that it be disguised as a pine tree. So we are willing to design and construct it as a concealed monopine if this is what the board would prefer. And so I'm well aware that there are a number of people who live in the area that are asking that the county, the planning board, and the board of commissioners deny our application for a cell tower. But I'd like to begin the discussion by emphasizing that this tower is really for the greater good of the community and for the county, because it will benefit the residents of the county, including the village of Marvin and also the town of Waxhaw. And it'll also benefit those who work in the area and who are driving through the area so that adequate coverage from all of the carriers can be provided. And this is an excellent, you will be hearing differently, I believe, from the people who will be speaking, but I believe this is an excellent location for a new telecommunications tower. The tower will be located very near Ray Road and directly adjacent to the commercial area along Ray Road. It is also an excellent location because it's located on a parcel that is there's heavily wooded to the western portion of the parcel, and that heavily wooded area with the trees will provide a substantial buffer from the residences that are located to the west of the tower site. And because of the screening and the fact that the tower is only a 170-foot monopole, the tower will not be located from the majority of vantage points in the area. And in those areas in which it will be seen, only the top of the tower will be able to be visible. And also, the parcel, it has a business zoning classification. It's zoned B2, community business, conditional zoning. And I did want to point out that concealed wireless towers of the height that's been proposed would be permitted by right on this parcel, except for the fact that the parcel has this conditional zoning conditions that are attached to the zoning classification. And for that reason, a concealed tower such as a monopine is not permitted by right. And a non-concealed tower such as a monopole would ordinarily be able to be permitted with a special use permit. But because of these conditions that are attached to the parcel, we have to come forward with a conditional rezoning to amend the conditions and also to add some additional conditions. And so I'd like to move on and provide some information about the site and where the tower is going to be located. I have provided, as part of my PowerPoint presentation, a few aerials that were included in the staff's report. And as you can see from the aerials and also with our application, the property is owned by Rayfield LLC, and it's located at 9921 Ray Road in Waxhaw. And the parcel is located on the southwest side of Ray Road and north of Tom Short Road. The parcel is 4.78 acres. And as I mentioned before, it's located in a B2 conditional zoning district. And so what we were proposing that the parcel be rezoned to is the same, B2 conditional zoning, but with some additional conditions that would allow a cell tower to be located on the parcel. And the property where the tower will be located is located adjacent to and directly west of the commercial area along Ray Road. And the commercial area has, I believe, American Naturist, Andy's Frozen Custard, and the Children's Lighthouse Child Care Facility. And so the first aerial shows that the site for the tower, the parcel, is located directly east of the jurisdiction for the village of Marvin. And the second aerial shows that the surrounding area, the surrounding area for the parcel is commercial to the east, and then multifamily and single-family residential to the west, and then also residential to the east on the east side of Ray Road. And the third aerial shows that the parcel, you can see the floodplain that's located on the parcel, and you can see that the parcel is wooded, and that the western portion of the parcel consists of a floodplain. And the tower will be located completely outside of the floodplain area. And the reason that I'm bringing up the floodplain on the parcel is the significance of this is that it cannot be developed. There can be no development within the floodplain, which means that all of the existing mature trees that are located in that area will be able to remain on the parcel and continue to provide a buffer to the residences to the west. And I've also provided, these documents are included in our application materials, but I've selected a few of the most important documents that are included in our site plans. But this is the survey for the parcel. And I wish I had a pointer, but you can see where the tower is going to be located. And City Switch is going to be leasing 6,099 feet from the Rayfield LLC. And then the tower will be located as required by the county's UDO within an 8-foot tall wooden fenced area. It is not a chain link fence, it is a wooden fence that will screen the bottom of the tower from all locations. And then again, there will be a wooded area between the tower and the residences that are located to the west. We've also provided a condition that I'll talk about in just a couple of minutes, that we are willing to provide an easement for a trail to connect, I believe, to the trail system with the village of Marvin. And there's also located on the east side of Ray Road, there is a very large wooded area that will provide a substantial buffer from the residences that are located on the eastern side of Ray Road. And this document is what we call a tower elevation drawing. And as you can see, AT&T will be located at the top location, the 150-foot location of the tower. And then there will be room for 3 additional carriers on the tower, and that will be Verizon, T-Mobile, and Dish Network. There's also, this is also, as I mentioned, a FirstNet site. And FirstNet entered into a nationwide partnership with AT&T to build the first nationwide wireless broadband network for first responders for use during disasters, emergencies, and daily safety, public safety work. And so the tower is not just important for AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and Dish Network, but it's also important for FirstNet and first responders. And then as part of our application materials, we've provided information about the need for the tower, and these are radio frequency studies that I'm going to be talking about next. And the tower will allow AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and Dish Network to solve their coverage and capacity problems in the area and improve their coverage in the village of Marvin, the town of Waxhaw, and the surrounding area of the county. And this first aerial shows where the tower is going to be located. And again, I'm sorry I don't have a pointer to show you, but it is located where the description is stated. And this is a propagation map that shows the existing coverage that is available. And the coverage that you want in the area would be shown as green coverage. That is excellent coverage. And when you have yellow and blue coverage, that means that you have insufficient coverage in the area. And this map shows the existing coverage surrounding the tower site. And it also shows where AT&T is located on other towers. And so AT&T is located on the towers that are located to the northwest, to the south, and also 2 towers to the east along Providence Road. And then as you can see, in between those areas is where there is the large gap in coverage. And that is what we're trying to solve with this tower. And then there had been some question about why AT&T could not locate, I was moving on a little too quickly. This is the RF plat that shows the coverage that will be available once the tower is constructed and AT&T's antennas are operational. And as you can see, there will be green coverage, which is excellent coverage in the area. And then this is a map that shows the nearest tower that AT&T's antennas are not located on. And that tower is the tower that is located to the west, and it is located 1.7 miles from the tower site, and it's near Ray Road and Tom Short Road. But as you can see, if AT&T was to place its antennas on this tower, it would be too close to their existing towers along Providence Road, and it's too far away. 1.7 miles is too far away to provide the coverage that they're trying to solve for in the area where the tower is located. So if AT&T were to put its antennas on this tower, it would not solve the coverage problems that we're seeking to address. And as part of the information that was included with the report, is that T-Mobile and Verizon have provided letters of support, and they have stated in their letters that they, like AT&T, are experiencing coverage and capacity issues in the area, and that the tower will allow them to improve coverage in these areas. And then I want to move on to the information about a balloon test that we performed. And I want to make it clear that the ordinance, the UDO, does not require that an applicant for a cell tower provide a balloon test. But we did so anyway, voluntarily, because we wanted to be able to demonstrate to the neighbors and to the planning board and the commissioners what the tower would look like from various vantage points. And so on May the 28th, tower engineer professionals flew a large yellow balloon at the height of the tower to show what the tower would look like. And during the balloon test, photographs were taken from 10 publicly accessible locations within a half-mile radius. And this is the map that shows the areas where the photographs were taken during the balloon test. And as you can see, it is a representative of all of the residential areas within that half-mile radius. And in the residential areas are to the west, south, and east of the tower site. And then from the balloon test and those photographs, photo simulations were prepared. And from the photo simulations demonstrate that the tower will not be visible at all from the majority of those locations. And in the locations where the tower will be visible, only the top of the tower will be able to be seen. And so I'll just, this is all part of our application, but I'll just scroll through these photographs. The first photograph simulation is located as a vantage point south of the site, and as you can see, the top of the tower will be visible. The second photographic simulation is located west of the tower site, and the top of the tower will be visible. The third location is southwest of the site, and the top of the tower will be visible. In the fourth location, which is located south of the site, the tower is not visible at all. And for the fifth one, located southeast of the site, the tower is not visible at all. For the sixth location, which is located southeast of the site, the tower is not visible. From the seventh, which is located east of the site, the tower is not visible. From the eighth location, which is northeast of the site, the tower is not visible. And from the ninth location, which is north of the site, the tower will not be visible. And then the 10th location, which is north of the tower site, just the very top of the tower will be visible. And so what our application demonstrates is that the tower will meet all of the technical requirements for a cell tower in the UDO, and I think that that is not disputed. And we've also demonstrated that the tower will not materially endanger the public health or safety. We provided information that improved wireless service is in great demand by county residents as more and more people rely upon their cell phones and wireless services. We provided information that there will be improved coverage from all of the major carriers where there is currently insufficient coverage, and that this is a FirstNet site that will provide benefits to first responders in the county. We also provided information that the tower will improve the public health and safety because those people who do not have landline phones or who are traveling through the area will have access to 911 services during times of emergency, and that the radio emissions from the antennas on the tower will comply with all federal laws, including FCC standards. We've also provided information that the tower is specifically designed so that it will have, in the very unlikely event that it were to collapse, that it would collapse within entirely on the parcel with a 50-foot fall zone radius. And then we also provided information that the tower will not substantially injure the value of abutting property or that it is a public necessity. And I believe that this tower is a public necessity because wireless services is necessary in today's world, especially when many of us are working from home and children had to be doing online learning. But we went beyond that and we provided a property report by Michael Berkowitz, who is a North Carolina certified real estate appraiser. And he has provided his expert opinion that the tower will not injure the value of residential or commercial property in the area. And then we also provided information in our application that the tower will be in harmony with the area. As I mentioned, the parcel is wooded to the northwest, and the tower, as you can see from the photographic simulations, will not be visible from the majority of vantage points. And those vantage points where it will be visible, just the top of the tower or the very top of the tower will be visible. And cell towers are very low impact type of uses, and they fit in well in both commercial and residential areas. They will not be a nuisance or a hazard due to traffic, noise, odor, or light. And as I mentioned, the tower will not be lit. It is not required to be lit by the FAA, and we've included a condition to state that it will be an unlit tower. In regard to traffic, it will produce minimal traffic. It is an unmanned facility, so it will only generate about 1 to 2 vehicle trips per month, and those are just for maintenance purposes. And then there's also information in the staff report and in our application that the tower is in conformity with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan discusses the need for improved broadband and internet services. And so finally, we have provided 4 conditions to our rezoning application that are included in our application. The first is that the height of the tower will be no greater than 160 feet with a 10-foot lightning rod for a total of 170 feet. The second is that the tower will not be lit. The third is that we will offer an easement to connect the trail with the trail system with the Village of Marvin. If the Village of Marvin chooses not to accept it, they don't have to, but we will offer the easement if they would like to have the easement. And then the fourth condition is that the tower will have an S2 screening around the fenced-in area. And then finally, as I mentioned, we're willing to add an additional condition that the tower will be disguised as a pine tree, so it could be a monopine rather than a monopole. And so, and finally, I just want to emphasize again that I believe that this tower is really for the greater good of the county and for the community. And I hope that the board will keep that in mind and will recommend approval to the Board of Commissioners. And so I have a number of people here who are available to answer questions, but Michael Berkowitz, I think, would like to speak very quickly just to walk you through his report and provide his expert opinion about impact of property values.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Michael Berkowitz. My address is 1100 Sundance Drive, Concord, North Carolina. I was engaged to look at the potential impact of this proposed tower. In the report that's provided in your agenda packet, I was able to provide match pair analysis, which is called a quantitative analysis, as well as a qualitative analysis, showing no impact of the visual impact of similar to the proposed development on property values of adjacent or abutting properties. That is all in the report. There are match pairs, including the one on Providence Road, which I believe was shown as a nearby tower in the adjacent neighborhood. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Does anyone have any questions? Any other questions for the applicant? I've got one question for the applicant regarding redundant power at this site. I know oftentimes these cell sites do have redundant power. Is this going to be the case for this particular one?
I'll defer this question to Stephen Howard with AT&T.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board. My name is Stephen Howard with a PH. My address is 2002 Pisgah Church Road, Greensboro, North Carolina. I'm sorry, what was your question?
Does this tower, is it going to have redundant power?
Emergency power?
Correct.
Yes, there's a battery backup, and then there's a 20 kV generator.
And what supplies that generator with fuel?
Diesel.
So you have a diesel generator. How close is that diesel generator going to be to that stream buffer?
I'd have to check. I'm not exactly sure. The diesel generator comes with its own containment structure to contain 100% of the fuel if it were to spill. But I'd have to measure exactly.
I can look to see what the distance is and get back to you about that, but it is completely outside of the buffer area. The entire site is outside of the buffer area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, did you stay?
Yes, sorry.
Is that going to be a sound attenuated enclosure on that generator?
It will be, it will meet or exceed all state and local noise limits. So if you have a standard, it will meet or exceed it. But yes, it'll be quiet, similar to a home generator.
There's residential mufflers, and there's conventional mufflers, and then there's enclosures, and then there's enclosures with insulation, with noise insulation, sound attenuated enclosures or generator sets.
So the generator won't be placed inside another shelter, but it will be muffled. Emergency generators also are typically exempt from noise standards, but we will meet or exceed. I don't have the.
I'm just asking a question. Normally they come in their own enclosure, built by the same company that builds the generator set.
Right.
And so you can buy them with additional sound attenuation, or you can buy them as simply a weather enclosure. I don't know which one it is that you intend to use.
I'd have to check that. I don't have that information off the top of my head.
Any further questions for the applicant? Vice Chair?
I've got a question for the applicant about wind speed. This tower at 170 feet, what's the maximum wind speed that fixture will hold without falling?
So we have a structural report that shows, we have a structural report that is part of our application that demonstrates that it meets all of the structural requirements and wind speed requirements. And
What is that? What is the speed?
Okay, and I will look to find out what the exact speed is. I don't remember it offhand, but I will check and let you know. And then in regard to the distance from the floodplain from the tower itself, the tower is located completely outside of the floodplain and as required by all of the UDO requirements. But our site plan does not show the specific distance, but it is clearly outside of the floodplain and outside, away from the stream.
Thank you.
In full disclosure, I need to let you know that the board did receive a letter from a concerned citizen, several points, of which the wind speed was one, and said that they could not find it anywhere. And I noticed when I went through what I had, I did not find anything on wind speed either. So I don't know if you've got it and didn't present it or what, but if you could let the planning board know and staff, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll look at the structural report and
Okay, thank you.
advise back after more comments are provided.
Any further comments, questions?
I got a question. How close is this to the daycare center?
So it is located about 50 feet from the daycare center.
So it's not, is there a fall zone?
Yes, there is a fall zone.
If
So
it's 170 feet and it's only 50 feet,
Yeah.
that's in the fall zone.
Okay. So it is located, what the ordinance requires is that the tower has to be either located outside of the fall zone, or you have to have an engineered tower so that the tower, in the unlikely event that it's going to collapse, will collapse entirely within the parcel. And so the fall zone report demonstrates that it's being designed so that if it were to collapse, the 160-foot monopole and the 10-foot lightning rod would collapse entirely within the parcel. So we have met the ordinance requirement about the fall zone.
I don't understand how a 170-foot tower can fall in 50 feet.
Yeah, so the tower can be designed for, in the event that it is going to collapse, there are points where it would collapse, and it would be designed so that it would fall entirely within the parcel. And so we have a fall zone report that's included in the application.
It would fall in pieces.
It would fall in pieces, all completely within
The whole pole itself wouldn't fall over, it would fall in
Right.
increments or whatever.
Imagine like a bendy straw. It'd bend.
Yeah, that's fine if the wind is up here and the wind is lower and it's not going to down, the whole thing's going to go over. And once the whole straw's going to fall, it's not going to bend.
Yeah, so the fall zone report provides evidence that it will, in the unlikely event that it were to collapse, it will collapse entirely within the parcel. And that is what is contemplated by the ordinance, and we have met that requirement.
Okay.
Any further questions?
You mentioned earlier that this was going to fulfill a need for the community in terms of what AT&T's output is going to be able to reach. I'm curious, was that substantiated based on any sort of customer surveying that you've done, any local voice output that has come from them?
Yeah.
Hello, how you doing? Paul Pacharko, RF design engineer with AT&T. My address is 4100 South Stream Boulevard in Charlotte, North Carolina. What was the question again?
Just to follow up on the need, was that substantiated? Did you guys do any customer surveying? Did you find, the voice of the customer to identify a specific pocket that we're targeting here with this tower?
Yeah, it's on the plots that I provided that was shown a little bit ago. Let me kind of get to it. So basically this area around where the cell site is, like the yellow and the red, that's bad coverage. So think of it as, when we built the site, the green coverage just like having 4 bars, right? So you're gonna have, full signal strength, and then as you go further away from the tower, it goes to blue, right? So that's like 3 bars. So the further out you go, the less power from the tower you're getting, right? So you're gonna get weaker signal, right? So that's what this shows right here. So we have, our network tells us that we have customers in here in this area that are dropping calls or call failures or stuff like that.
But what I'm asking is have they vocalized that to you? Has that been corroborated with their voice and saying, hey, this is a need to fill? Because I go from 4 to 3, I don't know the difference, right? I go from 4 to nothing and drop service, I notice something. So what I'm wondering is did we have any sort of feedback from the customer vocalizing their desire to improve from 4 or from 3 to 4, 2 to 4? Like, was there any studies done?
Well,
or is this just predicated on corporate one versus actual community needs?
Well, I think we had some discussions with local people that live within that area and businesses, but nothing like formal or anything like that. So, but.
And I would point out that also T-Mobile and Verizon have also expressed concern about their coverage in the area, and they too have been looking to find a solution to improve coverage. So it's not just AT&T. This is a problem for all of the major carriers in the area.
Yep.
So you're saying that the green is the best on that?
Correct, yeah. That's
So
right.
if you're on Providence Road, you got 2 towers on Providence Road. Right at the end of Ray Road, the yellow and the red, why aren't they picking up any of those 2 towers?
Well, they're too far, that's why. I mean,
Really?
the signal is going to depend on a lot of factors. You got, elevation, ground elevation, terrain, trees, vegetation, foliage. So it's going to depend. Every site doesn't produce the same amount of coverage. So
Putting up that, is that going to help that area? Putting up this monopole?
it's going to help the area within this site, a couple miles within the buffer site. So anything that's green or blue, and even picking up with the yellow, so pretty much all this red around here, and especially the white where there's no coverage at all, it's going to help that improve that area. So, and this is indoor coverage, so this is kind of what you look at if you're inside your home or in a restaurant or whatever. So that's what this prediction shows right here. Any other questions or anything I can answer? Yep.
And I've been given a little bit of help to answer the question about the wind speed. And this was included in our application materials from the Sabre Industries report that's dated July the 2nd of 2021. And the first paragraph states, we propose to design and supply the above referenced Sabre monopole with an ultimate wind speed of 112 miles per hour without ice and 30 miles per hour with 1.5 inches of ice, risk category 2. And that meets industry standards.
Any additional questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
At this time, we're going to open the public comment section. Same rules apply as last time. You'll be given 3 minutes per individual. Louis will be keeping track. And again, I will apologize if I mispronounce anyone's name. Also will apologize in advance. At 3 minutes, it's going to be a firm stop. I'm not going to let anyone continue on, so please work with us on that. When you're called, please come up, state your name, address, and whether you are for or against this project. First name is Yuri Ojomo. Is it?
excuse me, when you were down to 2.5 minutes, I'm gonna raise my hand and wave it at you. When you're down to 15 seconds, you get both hands.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, sir.
You're quite welcome.
Good evening. My name is Iyere Ojamo. I'm the owner of Children's Lighthouse Daycare Center on Railroad. My husband and I are proud residents of Union County for 16 years. My 3 boys were all born and raised here. This is my home. This is my community. I opened this daycare center over 10 years ago. My business was the first business on that location. That location where they are now trying to put a cell phone tower. If a cell phone tower was there when I bought that land, there's no way I would have opened my daycare there. It would have been irresponsible and sure guarantee for that business to fail. Many companies reached out to me several times wanting to lease some of my property for cell tower. Every single time, I said no, because I know that having a cell phone tower would destroy my business. I know this because many of my parents have been calling and telling me that they are going to pull out all their children if a cell phone tower goes behind my center. 50 feet from my playground. Many of the children will be affected with a decision made here today. I put my life savings, my sweat, and I built up this business. It's not just a business. It's a place where my families trust me to take care of these children and protect them. As member of this community, I created many jobs, I paid my taxes, I vote in elections in Union County. This daycare put food on my table. It is how the people that work for me pay their bills. Now, a faceless corporation is threatening to destroy this business altogether. The corporation bought a land in this place and want to put a tower there. They have no regard for the financial devastation to homes and businesses. They don't live here, so why should they care? It's not a business. It's not their business if it shuts down. It's all good as long as they get their 30 pieces of silver. There are lots of locations where this tower can be. Why does anyone think it's a good idea to put a tower on a playground? The playground where the children come to play, where they eat, and where they sit every day. This is reckless. It's downright immoral. I'm telling you this, I will not have a business to go back to if this cell tower is put behind my daycare center. The daycare center is a second home to many of these children. Some of them are there more than they are in their home, from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. every day. Who is responsible for putting these children in harm's way? What if this tower should collapse on the daycare? What if it catches fire? There are many things that could go wrong. We are told there are no known health reasons. Tell that to a mother that is dropping their precious 2-year-old developing child why a tower is buzzing over the playground. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, but if I can hitch my daycare to a truck and move that daycare away from that center, I will do it. But I can't. But this tower can be built somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jill Denton. Please state your name, address, and whether you're for or against this proposed project.
Thank you. Good evening, Planning Board staff and Planning Board. My name is Jill Dunton. I live at 2030 Rocky Hollow Drive. I live in the Amber Meadows neighborhood, which is in Union County. Approximately, the proposed cell tower will be approximately 100 feet above the tree line, visible from every rear window of our newly built Forever home, as well as from our dining room table where we gather daily with family and friends. Our backyard patio will have direct view of the tower, along with every home in the Amber Meadows and Tullamore neighborhoods. We are speaking on behalf of the Tullamore Homeowners Association, the Amber Meadows Homeowners Association, and the Canterfield Creek Homeowners Association, all of which in Union County. We are opposed to the 170-foot tower. Today, we will provide comments in opposition to the application City Switch has filed with Union County to build the tower. In our presentation to you this evening, we will outline how, number one, the tower would not advance the public safety, health, or welfare. Number two, the tower would not be in harmony with the surrounding community, and it would adversely affect property values. Number three, the site location of this applicant has chosen is irresponsible and not appropriate. Number four, the tower is not in the community interest. Thank you for providing this time for me and the speakers who will follow.
Thank you. Next up, Tanya, excuse me, Tanya McCallie.
Hi, Planning Board. My name is Tanya McCauley, and I live in the Tullamore neighborhood in Union County. I'm here today to address the issue of public safety. One of the most important considerations for a tower application is that of public safety, health, and welfare. We argue that this tower is not needed for any of those reasons, and in actuality could potentially harm public safety, health, and welfare. The applicant contends that public safety is to be interpreted as first responder usage. In fact, Union County intends to erect their own 380-foot tower some 1.5 miles away, which will meet the county's own first responder needs. The applicant also suggests that the tower is needed to provide FirstNet with coverage. FirstNet provides cell service to first responders. According to FirstNet's website, as shown on this screen, taken directly from FirstNet's website, FirstNet currently has full coverage at and around exactly where that tower will be. We submit that a broader and equally important interpretation of public safety would be consideration of safety to the Union County residents and businesses. This location in no way meets those considerations. The most obvious point of safety failure is that the tower is to be erected with its center mere 50 feet from the daycare playground. In spite of the tower being 170 feet tall and the engineered fall zone somehow being only 50 feet, as claimed by the applicant, cell towers do also catch fire, as you can see on this screen. We would logically assume that all these towers I'm about to show you were certified by an engineer, right? That they would not catch fire or that it, is unlikely to happen. Here's some other towers. These are all towers built here in the United States. They also fall. Even with an engineered certification, they fall. Can you imagine a tower like this is a monopole, falling on a daycare playground? Towers also shed ice after a sleet storm. Ice buildup is common in our area. If you look at Exhibit K in the memorandum that we submitted to you in the agenda packet, you'll find an article which states that these falling ice fragments, which should be coming up here, which I might need Bjorn to help me with because it's not playing the slide. Go on. Yeah. These ice fragments, they weigh over 100 pounds. Anyway, this video would show you that the ice falling from the towers. They hit the ground at 70 miles per hour. If an ice sheet hits the ground, it's going to kill someone. Imagine these flying off a tower right next to a children's playground. We as a community must consider everything that could potentially happen when a tower overshadows a daycare. We can logically assume that all these similar towers that I've shown you had similar engineering certifications, and yet disasters happen. Thank you.
Next up, Dahlia, I believe it's Hartman.
My name is Dahlia Hartman. I live at 1016 Jasper Lane at Amber Meadow in Union County. I will be addressing our concerns regarding the applicant's hired engineer's letter. In his report, the engineer certifies that a 170-foot tower has a fall zone of only 50 feet. We believe that does not satisfy the fall safety that should be required when a tower sits atop a child daycare center. For safety, many municipalities require that towers be at a minimum fall zone equal to their height. Some require a fall zone of at least 1.5 times the height of the tower. The engineer states that the tower is designed to standards. That means that the tower is basically highly unlikely to fail if design speeds are within range of build safety factors. The implication is that the tower might or might not fail if winds do in fact exceed the design range. The stated range is 112 miles per hour without ice load, and the range drops to 30 miles per hour with ice. We know that tornadic activities and winds far exceed this wind speed and do occur in our area. In addition, he adds that if failure does occur, the most likely location of failure will be at the tower base plate. Does that mean that the tower will topple to its full height? In addition, the engineer states that assuming the wind pressure profile is similar to that used in the monopole design, the monopole will buckle at the location of the highest stress point within the shaft, and it will fall in a radius of 50 feet. With additional vendor equipment, couldn't it be 60, 70, or 80 feet? None of his assertions are definite, so how can we believe that the tower is safe? Do you believe that it's safe to have your children or grandchildren play under this tower? In summary, a 50-foot fall zone for a 170-foot tower with all attached devices does not meet the test of common sense. Furthermore, we are not comforted by the tone nor the content of the engineering letter, nor do we believe that it supports a 50-foot fall zone. Based on all the consideration presented by Tanya and myself, it seems obvious that the proposed tower location would not meet the standard of public health, safety, and welfare. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Christy Brown.
Good evening. My name is Christy Brown. I live at 9216 Rockwater Court, which is in Canterfield Creek neighborhood of Union County. As you know, one of the criteria for the tower siting is that the tower will not substantially injure the value of abutting properties and that it is in harmony with the surrounding area. The applicant provided the county with an impact statement which states the tower will be in harmony with the surrounding area and that there is no impact to residential and business properties around this tower. We, the homeowners, strongly disagree with the applicant and their hired consultant's impact study. Being in harmony with the surrounding area. The hired consultant addresses the community character question by stating that the tower would be in harmony. We find this ludicrous, and there's no underlying detail or logic. In fact, this tower is 170 feet tall, which is essentially the height of a 15-story building, and it will have 4 vendor packages on top, when in fact there are no structures within over a mile and a half of this tower that are more than 30 feet, or 3 stories. The surrounding area consists immediately of 27 adjacent upscale townhome residences, 5 single-story light commercial businesses, and a daycare center. There are 6 or more neighborhoods of single-family residences on all sides of the tower. The proposed location is no more than 80 steps off Ray Road, which is an attractive suburban commuter corridor with a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, multiple stoplights. There is no industrial multi-story commercial development anywhere near. There is no transmission lines, railroads, or any other major right-of-ways. As you can see from the slide, this area is mostly suburban. There is simply nothing remotely like this proposed tower in any rational proximity in any direction. In the next section, Marcia will address the impact on real estate values.
Thank you. Marcia?
Good evening. My name is Marcia Fonsby. I'm a resident of Union County and a neighbor in Canterfield Creek. My address is 526 Streamside Lane. I'm also a realtor by trade. And with regard to the impact on real estate values caused by cell towers, I disagree with the hired consultant's opinion. The consultant states that he does not foresee a resulting impact on real estate values from this tower location, along with no impact on the daycare center located just feet away. His opinion is based on the comparable homes he chose, which are not homes that are comparable to the homes in the surrounding area of the proposed site. The hired consultant further admits that even with 24 tower locations in Union County, he was able to find only 3 comparable properties. The reason there's a lack of comparables is that these types of self-towers are simply not erected in residential areas like this. Of the 3 homes cited, 2 are located in Matthews along a business and industrial corridor near Route 74 and more than 11 miles from the proposed location. All 3 properties reflect a tower at the far back corner of a neighborhood. 1 tower is located in a commercial industrial area. 1 is located behind a farm and an agricultural area where it only impacts 1 cul-de-sac. None of the 3 towers referenced are situated similarly to the proposed tower site, where there is an open line of view to nearly 100 luxury homes with virtually no tree screening in between. Please review the 5 letters submitted by local realtors, including myself as Exhibit E and our memorandum. Each of these real estate professionals do business in the area regularly, and each agree that values would be negatively impacted by a 170-foot cell tower at this location. Next, a commercial real estate group owner expressed to the planning board how commercial real estate would also be negatively impacted. His letter states that a wireless tower would alter the value of our property with a substantial decrease in value, therefore making it virtually impossible to sell. This collection of letters unanimously agree that there would be a detrimental impact on both residential and commercial real estate values surrounding the tower. Did you know, according to the National Association of Realtors, 94% of people say that they are less interested in and would pay less for a home that's located near a cell tower? 79% under no circumstances ever would rent or purchase a property within a few blocks of the tower. These next few pictures show how the tower will look from our homes. As you can see, the tower is twice the height or more of the tree screening nearby. There are hundreds of houses with the same view, and we could have provided more examples. We vehemently oppose any further consideration of this project.
Thank you. David Shub.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Board. My name is David Shub, and I live at the Tullamore neighborhood, in the Tullamore neighborhood of Union County, at 311 Walker's Bluff Court, Marvin, North Carolina, and I'm opposed to the application. As an attorney, I took a close look at the zoning and environmental regulations related to the applicant's proposed tower location and found issues with both. First, the size of the tower makes it inappropriate for its proposed location. Under Union County zoning, the proposed location is B2, community business. It is for low-intensity commercial uses and small-scale commercial development. B2 zoning has a maximum height of 35 feet. City Switch cannot build the tower on the property by right. A tower of the extreme height proposed may be constructed by right only in industrial zones. The tower would sit in a suburban residential and small-scale business area with no industrial or heavy commercial aspects whatsoever. This picture shows a 170-foot tower dwarfing a 40-foot building to illustrate how out of place the proposed tower would be. There is nothing in the area that is above 35 feet. A 170-foot tower, which could then, at City Switch's whim under federal communication law, grow to 190 feet, is in no way low intensity or small scale. The zoning clearly was not meant to include such a tower, especially so close to a residential neighborhood. Second, the location is environmentally inappropriate. The stream next to the property, McBride Branch, is a tributary stream to the 6 Mile Creek, which is home to an endangered species, the Carolina heel splitter clam. The proposed site is part of a small leftover slice of land that remains following light commercial and residential development. The site is wedged between that development and a sloping bank to the stream. Because of the stream, City Switch is placing the tower at one extreme edge of the land to push it as far away from the stream as possible while keeping a small distance of 50 feet from the back fence of the daycare center. North Carolina staff confirms that a 200-foot buffer protection applies to McBride Branch. However, they contend that its own design engineer estimates that less than 1 acre will be disturbed and no permit is required. Considering the road to the tower and the ground disturbed in the construction of the tower and the tower site itself, we are not convinced that less than 1 acre is disturbed. In addition, the tower site could include and lose up to 400 gallons of diesel fuel that could run off into the stream. There is no guarantee that the stream and downstream waterways will not be impacted. Because of the zoning violation and the dangers, we absolutely agree with the planning board's staff's conclusion that this location is not appropriate for the applicant's proposed tower site. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Gary Vale.
Good evening. My name is Gary Vale. I live in Union County. I live in the Marvin neighborhood of Amber Meadows. I'm number 8 if you've been counting in this presentation, and I'll be brisk. My job is to recap about 4 points that you've heard a lot of facts about that we think are important with this thing. We believe that the tower isn't in the community interest, and we have a community that you now know is interested, that is engaged, and that is overwhelmingly supporting denial of the application. That support comes in the form of a Marvin Council resolution, the online petition mentioned of 400 signatures just under in a 2-week period, and the fact that you have in your packet 60 letters from homeowners who are concerned about this. I want you to take a look at this picture, and I want you to think about the balloon test picture you saw a minute ago. The balloon test picture was, to our recollection, flawed. It showed selected locations. It showed that like 5 out of the sites didn't see the tower at all. The way these pictures, this is from a drone, 165 feet in the air, and this picture shows what really happens. You've got about 100 homes who have a direct, unmitigated view of that tower with not a tree screen in between that's high enough to do anything. We've talked about the impact study and some things that the hired consultant stated. He stated that the tower would be in harmony with the surrounding community. They would have no impact on real estate values, and even concluded that traffic along Ray Road provides a higher external influence on property values than the proposed tower. We doubt that. The zoning amendment is interesting. It was zoned B2 for a reason, and it's been used as B2 for a reason, and the conditions are there for a reason. It's not industrial, and the tower couldn't be built by right. It was zoned that way to prevent something 175 feet from being put there at all. We would suggest you not change that zoning, that you not set a precedent, and that you not make an exception with this application. And lastly, let's talk for a second about public safety. We understand the greater good, we do, but the greater good has to end somewhere, and we think this is where it ends. There's no margin for public safety with this location. The engineer's wind testing reference question earlier, they tested it 112 mile an hour range without ice. It also didn't include the weight and the wind resistance of a vendor package. Even an F1 tornado can hit 112 mile an hour. F3s are not uncommon, and they hit 200 miles an hour. There's no fail-safe, and it's not just high winds. There's uncertainty, and that's not good enough. When you have kids in a playground underneath a tower that high, you need certainty. We refuse to believe that this is the best location available. We strongly recommend that this application be denied.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Next up is Karen, and I can't read the last name, starts with a K.
That's me.
Oh. Next up is Lucy Vogel. No. Bob Vogel? No. David Castley? Moving on, Sean Soul?
Can I be moved further down the list, please?
Sure. You only have two behind you. Jeffrey?
Well, I was going to read something that I didn't think was included in the packet, but it was. I just really wanted to reiterate everything that everyone here has said. You know, my concern is splitting real estate values, safety concerns.
Come on up.
and so forth. So I'm good.
Very good.
I'm here to, you know, express my opposition.
Very good. Jeffrey Savoy? No. And is this Carlos?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Board. I am Carlos Alvidres. I am a resident of Union County. I live at 3011 Rocky Hollow Drive. I have two boys and a lovely wife. City switch balloon tests and photo simulations, which are included in their application, are inherently defective and should be entirely disregarded. In an effort to convince the Union County Planning Board and the Union County Board of Commissioners, City Switch suggests that the installation of a massive, nearly 15-story tower would not inflict a severe adverse visual impact upon the adjacent homes. As evidence of this assertion, City Switch has submitted 10 photographs dated May 21 of this year in the hopes that the same assure reviewers that the tower would create little aesthetic and visual impact on the surrounding community. City Switch is incorrect in its photos, like its impact study, and are a mere misrepresentation of the truth. City Switch offered pictures deliberately omitting simulations or any images actually taken from any of the homes which would sustain the most severe adverse aesthetic impacts, as you can see in the picture. And if you, Dahlia, who's here, she lives about 400 feet from the tower.
Yeah, about 400 feet. I can see the tower from my bedroom, from my bed.
Yeah. Conveniently, no pictures were presented from those houses. And I'm going to go a little bit off script here and just say that I do think that respect is owed to the residents of this senior community of Amber Meadows. These are people that are grandparents that invested in a home, in their home forever, and the antenna is right outside their window, about 400 feet from there. I don't think that's respectful, and I think that I'm pretty sure we could find another location for it. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, everything else that I have on this list has been crossed out. Is there anyone else that meant to speak that still wishes to? You can only speak once, ma'am. Anyone else that hasn't spoken yet? Thank you. At this time, we're going to close the public comments. And I'd like to have discussion within the board.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, one thing bothers me about this thing. It's not the aesthetics. No cell tower has ever won an architectural award. It's not going to. But we all have cell phones, so they got to put them somewhere. But 50 feet away from a daycare center. I work in agriculture, and we have things called bucket elevators. The tallest one I've ever been up on is 150 feet. Pretty tall. People are prone to drop things. And then you can't engineer that. And if somebody were up there and dropped a piece of equipment, dropped a wrench, little kids down there playing, and it happens to hit that child, I can't vote for this. I can. And I won't.
Vice Chairman Fisher.
I thought long and hard about this and listened to people tonight, both sides. And I appreciate the turnout, the honesty, the presentations that we've seen, justifying the reasoning, et cetera, so forth and so on. There are things that we can talk about, and there's things that we don't want to get into from the standpoint we don't have the right to based on higher up the line. We can think about aesthetics, landscaping. We can make decisions on evidence from the hearing, but we don't discriminate among providers and a couple, 2 or 3 other things. But, Mr. Chairman, fellow board members, I cannot support the approval of this tonight.
Thank you.
I will give you my 2 cents on this. Well, first of all, obviously, there's nobody supports this thing. My concern initially was, well, gee, you know, electronic technology is moving faster and faster and faster. The Marvin area has still got a place to grow. There's more people out there, and if you got a hole in the communication, it'd be a problem. But I'm also, remember, I spoke to a friend of mine who's an electrical engineer, and he was telling me that the technology is working toward satellites straight down to, and leave all those towers out, all of them. For your sakes, people, I hope he's right. I hope it comes quickly. But if it was me, if I lived in your town, you'd all want to kill me, because I don't want the tower up there. But you were speaking here, you make your point very clear, and I will vote in unison with the way you would ask me to vote, which is no, I'm not for the tower either, okay?
Any further discussion?
My only comment echoes everyone else. I couldn't vote for a tower right next to a daycare center and something happens and, you know, I couldn't live with that, so.
I can't either. I'm 50 feet from the daycare center with a 170-foot tower and a 50-foot drop zone. No way. I can't. I won't.
Thank you. Christopher?
I'm not going to be the lone wolf, by the way. I can overlook the intrinsic nature of it. I'm sorry, it's just a cell tower. My kids would probably love to death if they could faster stream their TikTok videos and all of their Instagram and whatnot. But bottom line is you don't, right? And while you're hopefully representative of the vast entire community that surrounds an area for which should be improved on a cellular basis, you said no. And ultimately, I completely agree with my counterparts from a safety perspective. It just doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. I would implore you all, though, to work with the applicant and find a more reasonable, more logical place for the tower, because there is probably some benefit there that you all would experience, depending upon your professions and just in your own personal life, but it just doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense to me.
Can I make a
Thank you.
comment on that? Union County is
Ma'am,
approved
public, I'm sorry, but public comment is closed at this time.
Well, I just want to answer.
Yes, ma'am, we have to be fair to everyone.
Okay,
I'm sorry. Bjorn, one question to you before I make my comments. It was my understanding that this particular property that is zoned conditional was de-annexed from Marvin in the past. That is correct?
That is a true statement.
Okay. So my first point, echoing what some of my colleagues have said, if there's a 50-foot buffer from this daycare and there's a 50-foot fall zone, that leaves a margin of error of 0 inches. But the bigger point for me, and the reason that I got involved in any of this with the planning board in the first place, was some of the games that are played at the political level. Marvin did not want the zoning that is currently there. It was de-annexed from them. This was a game, and now they are being forced with something outside of their jurisdiction. I feel as though their word, their opinions on this means more than Union County, because this was their property at one time. And for it to be de-annexed and then try to ram something down their throat, I think that's just morally reprehensible. To that end, I understand cell phone the necessity. I get it. I, like everyone here, have a cell phone, and I could appreciate good coverage, but this is not the place, this is not the application, and I cannot support this. So that being said, do we have a motion? Second. All in favor of denial? Thank you all.
Do you want me to explain for everyone? For the benefit of everyone, both in the audience and for the planning board, what happens next is this goes to the county commissioners for their first meeting in January, which is, I believe, the 2nd or 3rd of January, where there'll be a hearing. The same.
Could everyone in the audience please be quiet until Bjorn explains? Understand that this matter, even though it has not passed the planning board, it will go before the Board of Commissioners, and they may override our vote. So this is some critical information.
This is strictly advisory. This goes to the county commissioners, where it'll be heard at least at one meeting, where they will have a public hearing. They can elect to put it onto their agenda for action that night, but the traditional process is they'll get the information through a public hearing the first meeting. The second meeting, they will take action. They won't have any public comment at the second meeting. It'll only be at that first meeting in January. Everyone who is notified through this process will be notified again. Essentially the same information. Our staff report will get updated a little bit to include the results of this meeting, but it will get pushed out again, posted online, and streamed via YouTube as well. And you are more than able to make the exact same comments to the county commission at that meeting in January. That's all I have, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Moving along. Item 21-500, amendment to the Planning Board's Rules of Procedure. And you all are welcome to leave if you'd like. This is where it gets boring. Mr. Jensen. All right, if everyone could please continue the conversation in the hallway, that way we could all get home to our families. Thank you.
All right. Can everybody hear me?
We got you, buddy.
Okay. So the next item was a request from the board to take a look at the rules of procedure, mainly in regards to voting, to make sure that when we have an acting board, that we have an odd number of members, so we don't end up with tie votes and things like that. So we thought about this and really came up with I think a fairly simple solution here. So under Rule 18 of the board's adopted rules of procedure, it talks about, what it used to talk about was just the rules governing a quorum for the planning board. It just says, where they're found in the UDO, and that those rules and the ordinance may be amended by the Board of County Commissioners. So what we did, we ended up just placing a short couple sentences in here, and I'll just read it verbatim. So in addition, that means in addition to those above statements, but in addition, in order to avoid the possibility of tie votes, the planning board, when appointing alternate members, will strive to maintain an odd number of voting members. Thus, as an example, if 4 regular members are present and both alternate members are present, the planning board may appoint just one alternate member to maintain an odd number of voting members. So see, there's some kind of specific language in there, and that's really on purpose. It's not, we use some mays, we didn't use shalls, so that's to avoid. So it's kind of some guidance. It's really saying, this is what the board wants to do. This is what we're going to strive to do. But you never know. There could be some reason or some issue that pops up. I actually sat there and when I was writing this thought through any scenario I could think of where you wouldn't do it, and I couldn't come up with one. But the minute that it was crafted that way, we would have that happen at the next meeting. So, so you've got some soft language in there that it kind of gives board direction. This is what we strive to do, but we don't necessarily have to do it if there's some reason we can't. So
That seems to me like what we had discussed at the meeting. Any discussion on this one, or do we have a motion?
Motion to approve is presented.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Done.
all right, so that is official.
And the final item, the planning staff report.
I just have one quick item. As many of you saw in your agenda packets, or in that massive agenda packet that you downloaded, still downloading. The county did switch to a new type of agenda software. So this is the same, again, it's the same one that the Board of County Commissioners uses. So I'm going to take you to that site. It's called Legistar. We have actually Mr. Bill Laney here helping us tonight. This has some indexing capabilities to where Bill's kind of explaining how this works throughout the meeting, where I don't know exactly how it works, but I know that when this is published, you'll be able to integrate with video and be able to jump to different parts of the meeting without having to watch the whole thing if you're just interested in one part of it. But I wanted to show it to you. Didn't have really an opportunity to show it to you prior to this meeting. Yeah, and how to use it. So,
No, I used it today.
oh, okay. So when the agendas are published, they'll show up on this website. It's kind of get to it the same way you got to the old one. Look at the planning board, and as you can see, you've got an agenda. This link just takes you to sort of the short agenda. It just takes you to items 1 through 7. The second one takes you to the agenda packet. This agenda packet happened to be 795 pages long, so it was a lot of information. And then, of course, minutes aren't available because they've not been approved. And then you can come over here to the video. If I click on this, we'll all see us sitting here, but it indicates that this meeting is in progress. Another kind of interesting thing about it, if you download the agenda, just this page, just a short version, if you want, it has links to all the agenda items, the material that was submitted. So if you don't want to download the full 795 pages, go and download this one. And then if you're curious about, say you want to see the construction drawings, you can click on this and it will download. Of course, that's a large document because you can see it's taking a few seconds there, but you can download individual drawings. So you can do that with every item that's been submitted. That way, if you don't want to, again, you don't want to download the full thing and have to worry about scrolling through it, you can download them sort of as you go through and look at those items. So I just wanted to, it is a new system. It's, taking some getting used to on our end and probably your end as well. But I just wanted to kind of go through that little demo.
Please sort of interrupt here, but based on what you said and what you just showed us, go back to that list of
Sure.
attachments or whatever that you had on that, what was it? Keep going. Right there, where it says attachments, Blue Star application and all that. When I made the comment tonight about having substantiating statements about what I comment on the PowerPoints and things like that, if they're up there talking, I don't know what they're going to say. And what I was trying to get is to make the presentation through the PowerPoint.
Oh, sure.
And
Yeah.
Was I wrong in that?
No, I mean, you know, I don't want to question the applicant, but I do think that, and that's why when we present things to the board, we always try to, if it's a complicated matter, we'll try to always have a PowerPoint prepared. I think that's a good way to convey a lot of information in a short, concise way. So,
If you
no,
say something, like a politician, don't take me wrong. You say something, and people believe it, but it's not being fact-checked.
Sure. No, I certainly think PowerPoint is a good thing for all applicants to have. That's all I've got for the staff report, unless Bjorn or Matthew or Amy.
Awesome. And then we have the
Schedule.
the meeting schedule we
That's
need
right.
to review.
That's right. We do have the meeting scheduled to review.
Anyone have any comments on this one, or we want to get out of here by 10?
Just say thanks for the meeting schedule for next year.
All right, motion. Do we have a motion to approve? There it is, second. All right, all in favor?
Yeah, I was about to say, you beat me to.
Right on, there you go, unanimous. That being said, we conclude the meeting of December 7th, last one of the year. Well, I guess before that, do you guys want to make any comments?
Merry Christmas, everybody. We didn't bum out that one.
What time's breakfast?
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn? All right, all in favor? Good night.
My wife texted me.
Is he still back? I'll go look.
Maybe we'll get there past that time, back in January, probably. I'm really motivated to figure it out. We'll bring it back and see what happens.
Did either of y'all write yours, like, do I need to?
I just said,
I think
leave it here.
I'm a little.
Can I-
Take a little bit, go